You're looking forward to meeting your baby, and whether or not you're budget conscious or if you're tight on space, you may not be interested in buying all the things. Today's question comes from Zara. She writes, what do we actually need before our baby arrives? We live in a small apartment and we're moving shortly after our baby is born. What are the absolute essentials we should have on hand before our baby comes? Like the bare minimum. Thanks for taking my question. Okay, Zara, I can completely relate to not wanting to have a whole bunch of things in your home just to pack it up and put it in a box, especially if you've never used it before and just drag it around to someplace new. So, we're going to talk about the 4 key areas of what you'll probably want to have on hand. And for any of my budget conscious moms out there, we're also going to give you a ballpark range of what you might actually spend. But before we dive into today's conversation, if we haven't hung out before, my name is Brianna. I'm a fellow mom and a money coach. And here we talk about all things money and real life. So, let's dive into today's conversation. When I was looking at registering for what we were going to need, I kid you not, I got like a 3-page printout from some sort of like suggested registry website, and it was so overwhelming. It was just like, what do I really need? Because this seems like so much. There are only 4 key areas of what you want to have on hand for your baby, and typically most parents are going to spend anywhere from $1,000 up to $5,000 for what is considered essential. The first category is going to be food. If you're planning on breastfeeding, that can be taken care of relatively simply by just the fact that you are there and present. Now, breastfeeding does have several different challenges, which we will address in a future episode, but you don't have to really worry about that until after your baby is born and you actually know what challenges are going to present itself. The second thing that you're going to want to plan for is a safe place for your baby to sleep. I know there's this whole conversation about co-sleeping and not co-sleeping. So wherever you kind of fall in that line of thinking, your baby's going to need to have some place to sleep regardless. We found our crib secondhand through Facebook Marketplace, and we ended up paying only about $100 for our crib. So you can find wide ranges in regards to different sleep arrangements. Now, if you're tight on space or you know that you just don't want to set up an entire crib just to be moving someplace new, you can purchase a pack and play. Most pack and plays are going to be much less expensive than a crib. Now, of course, depending on how many accessories they come with, you might end up spending more on a pack and play with all of the additional features than you might spend on a used secondhand crib. But if you do purchase a crib, you're also going to want to purchase a baby mattress and have sheets on hand. Depending on what your household looks like, it may not just be where is your baby going to sleep, but it also might be a safe place for your baby to stay while they're awake. So for me, we had a very large dog, and that meant that we needed to kind of plan safe zones for our baby to be when they weren't actually in our arms. So if you're tight on space, Zara, like you mentioned, it may just make sense for you just to have one spot for your baby to be, especially as they become a little bit more mobile. You know that if you set your baby down, that they're going to be okay. The third category is clothing, and this is going to include not only what they're wearing, but also diapers. For babies, they really don't need a lot of clothes, especially depending on when in the season that they are born. I had this grand expectation like, oh, they're going to be in outfits, they're going to have like pajamas and regular clothes, and they're going to be, have all these cute little onesies. Well, okay, the time came and I realized like I am so exhausted. It's okay if they just live in a sleeper or a onesie. In fact, by the time my second was born, I was just like, we're changing so many diapers. Let's just keep them in a swaddle. They really need a lot less than you think. In fact, when it comes to clothings altogether, I highly recommend zippered onesies because no one wants to be working with all those little tiny buttons when you're trying to change a diaper over midnight and you're just trying to get as much sleep as you possibly can, okay? So if you have the option, choose zippers is what I would recommend. And then you want probably at least 5 onesies if you're going to go that route. You probably want about 3 swaddles. You might want to have a combination of both onesies and swaddles because when your baby is born, they typically are going to have what's called a startle reflex, and they may sleep better being swaddled because the startle reflex typically will wake them from their slumber. And when you're managing a newborn, as much sleep as you can possibly get is always going to be helpful. You don't need to have a whole bunch of diapers and wipes on hand, right? Like you will eventually go through all of the wipes that you probably have. There are several uses for wipes. I love wipes even now as a mom when my kids aren't even in diapers. Some newborns, when they're first born, they may not fit in like size 1 diapers. They may need to have a smaller size, or depending on how large your baby is when it is born, they may not even fit into like newborn diapers. So and here's the other thing is your hospital will most likely have diapers for you for the first couple of nights that you're there. You will have time to be able to actually like acquire diapers to know what size you need by the time you take your baby home. So you probably only need just a few, like get maybe 1 box of newborns, you'll be okay. What about burp cloths and washcloths and towels and all of these things? Well, okay, so if we're looking at the bare minimum of things that we want to have, I can probably almost guarantee you have plenty of towels and washcloths and extra rags around your home that you can use for burp cloths and just like throw them over your shoulder. Those things can get you by very easily for either the entire portion of your baby's life or for at least the portion of time that you decide that, okay, I'm ready to buy extra things because this makes sense for what we need. Hand towels are about the same size as most burp cloths, and I can assure you that they are just as absorbent. When it comes to baby washcloths and towels, even though we had baby washcloths and towels, my own towels and washcloths are way better than the quality of these newborn baby ones. It's just kind of those extra things that you don't really need to have if what you have on hand will work. The final category is car seats. As much as you don't really need this until after your baby is born, you will need it by the time you're ready to leave the hospital or birthing center or wherever you actually give birth to your child. And your hospital will not let you leave until they see your baby is securely strapped into your car. When we were ready to leave the hospital, we had a nurse check our 5-point harness and also walk out with us to our car, and she had to hear the click of the car seat going into the base to know that it was safe before we could drive away. You might want to have that purchased and installed and safely set up in your car. Now, when it comes to a car seat, for any of my more budget conscious moms, you might want to consider looking into an all-in-one car seat. So essentially, this type of car seat is not an infant carrier. It is going to allow your baby to use the same car seat from being an infant all the way up to toddler years, and it kind of grows with your baby. The all-in-one car seat that we currently have right now would accommodate my infant son, and he's currently using the same car seat, and he's 4 years old. Now, we did have an infant carrier car seat that we were gifted, but here's something that you may want to keep in mind if you decide to purchase an infant car seat secondhand. There could be hidden dangers if you don't know the history of that specific car seat. Typically, car seats are going to last anywhere from 6 to 10 years. It should be evident on the back of the car seat when it was manufactured or the expiration date, but that may not be present for all secondhand car seats, or it may not be on the car seat, it may be in a manual. So that's one thing that you're going to want to be aware of. If you're buying a secondhand car seat, it could have missing parts or it could have a missing manual. Some car seats have very specific regulations on how they should be installed and how they should be secure in your car, not only for the car seat itself, but also for the height and weight of your baby or child. There is a likelihood that car seats have been in an accident accident. When you purchase a car seat, you should register it with the manufacturer. But if you're getting a car seat secondhand, especially from someone you don't know, you're missing out on a lot of that information to know, is this car seat still safe for my child? Knowing all of those details and pieces of information, I personally wasn't comfortable with buying a secondhand car seat. Even though we did get secondhand car seats, they were from people that we knew and trusted, and we could ask all of these questions ahead of time. Then I could feel assured that my baby and my sons were going to be safe in this car seat because I knew all of this information up front. One resource that I have for you, which I'll link up in the info box of this episode so you can look into it yourself, is the NHTSA website, and they have a whole bunch of information about car seats and booster seats, safety details, etc. Most fire departments or police departments will have a car seat safety day where they will allow parents to bring their car seats for a safety inspection at the firehouse or police station. So if this is not being advertised or promoted in your location, you can always call over there. Please call the non-emergency number for your local station and see if that's something that they will offer to you if you were to drive over there ahead of time. If you have anything else that you thought was super essential, please feel free to drop that information in the comments below so that way Zara and any other moms listening can get that information there as well. And if you would like to submit a question for a future episode, check out the link in the info box below so that way we can answer your question in a future episode. Zara, despite the desire to nest and have everything ready before your baby comes, there's so much that you can actually acquire and get based off of your specific baby's needs after baby is born. For example, diapers. How much might you spend on diapers, and what if you're on the fence between cloth or disposable? Well, if you have those specific questions, I'll link up an episode for you next. Until we hang out again, create your own heart home.